I'm feeling so good.
Hello guys, HL here, coming to you with another World of Warships Blitz video. In today's video, we will be taking a look at 6 tips and tricks you can use to improve your win rate when playing battleships. But before we get into the video, I want to let you guys know that I have created a fleet, the name's Fleet of HL, you can see it on the screen right here. Feel free to join if you want to have a chance to play together and be featured in my videos. Also, don't forget to follow my socials, which are linked in the description down below. With this out of the way, let's head to tip number 1. Starting at tip number 1 is to not solo rush. This is because many players who rush to the front without support in battleships tend to get torped by enemy cruisers and destroyers or swamped by battleships, which will result in them sinking and not helping their team as well as affecting their win rate. Instead, battleships should move with cruisers and destroyers, as cruisers can use their radar to detect enemy destroyers which are hidden and use their high rate of fire to discourage enemy destroyers from targeting you. Friendly destroyers, on the other hand, can take advantage of enemy cruisers and battleships which are locked in a fight with you and too busy to notice, sneak up to them and torp them in order to kill them. In conclusion guys, you should always move together, as you won't just be improving your win rate, but you will also be helping your team. Coming in at tip number 2 is to always angle your ship. While I have included this in my previous video, which was tips and tricks about Bismarck, I decided to include it again in this video as this is a really important tip. Angling makes you harder to hit because you have a smaller area which the enemy can shoot at, and also helps bounce some of the armor penetrating shells which the enemies shoot at you, thus reducing the amount of damage taken. With ships with a 3x3 turret configuration like North Carolina and Iowa, you can sail bow in and just use the 2 front turrets, giving you 6 turrets in total, which sailing bow in, by the way, also reduces the number of shells that will hit you. Well, I know you are thinking that, how am I going to sail bow in with a ship like Gneisenau, Bismarck or Friedrich the Grosser, as there's only 4 guns pointing forward? Well, as those ships have tougher armor, you should turn the ship just enough at the steepest angle that is allowed to fire all guns on the enemy. This is the best way to reduce the damage taken, thus increasing your survivability and letting you help your team deeper into the game, which will also increase the chances of winning. At tip number 3 is to use damage control party wisely. I am mentioning this because I have noticed that many people use damage con when their ship is only on 1 fire. I am not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, but what will often happen is once your immunity period from the damage control party is over, the enemy HE spammer, usually a cruiser or a British battleship, will just set you on fire again, and worse still, if they don't set you on 1 but 3 fires, it will deal even more damage. Instead, you should save the damage con when either 1, you are almost dead, 2, you are able to disengage effectively, which means moving behind an island or to somewhere where you will not get fired upon, or 3, which I like to do personally, is to save it for when your main batteries, propulsion system or steering system get taken out by enemy gunfire or torpedoes. Doing this will often increase your survivability, as using damage con for rudder, which I prefer, will generally allow you to quickly move away instead of sailing in circles, being predictable, because it's quite easy to shoot you if your rudder is damaged and you are sailing in circles, and being killed in the early onset of the battle. At tip number 4 is to aim at the right area of the enemy ship, and by this I mean shooting at the right section or part of their ship. Well, this is because you have to hit the important part, for example, the citadel of the ship, to get the most damage your shells can give. In the diagram shown here, the citadel is usually located in the center of the hull, so shooting at the center of the hull when aiming is usually the best thing to do, instead of shooting at what is above the hull, which is usually superstructure, as that will just give you overpens, which is like half damage. Alternatively, you could also shoot the main battery, as it would reduce their main batteries by knocking them out, thus giving them less chance to fire at you. When dealing with destroyers which do not have a citadel, aiming at the center of the hull will also maximize your damage as it will give you more penetrations. Coming in at tip number 5 is choosing the right shell type for the right situation. In most situations, battleships should prioritize using AP as they have the biggest caliber armor penetrating shells in the game, which will deal the most damage if they penetrate at the right places, especially the citadel. In a situation where there's a DD and you will over-penetrate, use HE shells as they won't overpen and there is a chance that you take out the modules on the enemy ship. Well, I know what you're asking. If I am in a BB with AP loaded and I'm being rushed by a DD, do I switch to the HE straight away and wait for the lengthy 20-second reload, or what do I do? Well, in such a situation, the best thing to do is to fire your AP, never mind that it's overpen, at least you get some damage, and then switch to HE, then wait for the HE to load, and then fire at them with HE with the next volley. At tip number 6 is to point your guns in the right direction. While this does sound weird and maybe a little stupid, it is very important as battleships often have a very slow turret traverse, and if an enemy ship suddenly appears on the side which your turrets are not pointed at, you will often not be able to turn your turrets around to react in time. As such, you should always try to guess where the enemy will be headed, or rather try to predict and strategize on where you are going to head to and what is your plan for the battle. Then turn your turrets in the right direction that you predict the enemy will be at, and if you are correct, you will be able to fire on the enemy the moment they appear, thus allowing you to deal damage to them before they damage you. So guys, those are 6 tips and tricks which you can use when playing battleships to increase your chances of winning. Now, I'll show you guys a gameplay of me playing the Gneisenau and how I applied those tips and tricks, as well as a few tips that I did not talk about in the video. You'll see them in this battle. At the start, I usually prefer to head to a center position because I can fire across on the broadsides of enemy battleships when they are dueling my teammates from the sides. So I'm checking to see whether any ships appear, whether they fire their guns or they come too close. I'm trying not to move forward too quickly because I don't want to be rushed by DDs or cruisers with torpedoes, as Gneisenau is a typical German battleship. She doesn't have the best torpedo protection. And there's torpedoes. I decide to use precise aim, fire over the long distance to get a few penetrations on torpedoes. I also request my team to open fire on her, as she can really deal lots of damage if she gets up close. There's the Chapayev. Now I decide to fire on the Chapayev as I hope I can get a citadel with the plunging fire, but German dispersion causes me to miss again. Now I'm reversing because I don't want to be spammed by Chapayev's HE, as Gneisenau isn't the best at fire protection. And then Scharnhorst appears, so I just simply decide to fire on Scharnhorst because she's showing flat broadside. At this point, I was also debating whether I should fire on North Carolina. As you can see, my teams Richelieu and North Carolina were fighting, King George V were fighting the NC of the enemy, so I wanted to fire on her, but then the island was blocking, so I couldn't really get a clear shot, so I switched back targeting the Scharnhorst. At this point, I was deciding to turn into the flank because I wanted to fight at that flank, not as in brawling, because that flank clearly, the enemies clearly outnumber my team on that flank, so I'm not going to push straight in, but I'm just going to turn in a little bit more to support my team. At this point, you can see I'm turning my ship just to get all 6 guns on the Scharnhorst, but the locking system can be annoying, so I decided to shoot the Chapayev. And the Mahan just appeared. I cracked sonar or hydroacoustic search so I can see the torps, and I turn away. And to this Amagi, I'm really sorry if you're watching this, because I bumped into you and probably caused you to eat some torps. So now I'm turning in, firing on the Scharnhorst again. I know that I'm showing some broadside, but I'm not too worried because Shanho's guns are, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they are 283 millimeters. So even if they do penetrate, they probably won't get citadels on me, and they won't hurt too bad. So I crack precise aim, fire on the Shanhos again. Sadly, I don't lead enough because Shanhos suddenly speeds up. At this point, I'm still firing on the Shanhos, but I think my teammate gets the kill. As you can see, the enemy Tirpitz is pushing in, and my team's Amagi is going to meet the Tirpitz. And as you guys probably know, German battleships always win in close range duels, Japanese battleships don't. So since the Amagi was taking lots of fire, I decided that I would move in closer but not too close because I didn't want to get torpedoed by the Tirpitz. But I wanted to help my Amagi so then the Amagi wouldn't die. But as you can see, I'm being very cautious here because the Mahan there is torping. So here you can see that the Tirpitz is fully focused on the Amagi and not firing at me. So I'm not too worried at this point, and therefore I start to push up to the Tirpitz. German battleships overall are the best when they close the distance with the enemy because German's armor scheme is very good in terms of vertical protection, which is good because short distance shooting doesn't cause plunging fire, so it does not hit the deck, and therefore hits the vertical protection, which is turtleback armor and incredibly hard to get real penetrations, especially on the citadel. So I'm close enough to the Tirpitz, I drop torps and I slow down in case Tirpitz decides to torp me, but I think the Tirpitz was too busy dealing with the Amagi, so she didn't drop torps. My torps hit and I fire my guns and I snag the kill. Now I'm focusing my attention to the Chapayev, as German AP really can deal lots of damage to cruisers, or generally most AP from battleships can deal lots of damage to cruisers, as cruisers have really light armor and battleship AP is quite strong. So I'm firing on the Chapayev. Sadly, no citadel hits, and at this point I'm slowing down because I know the Mahan is there and I'm trying to be very careful so I don't get torped. And the tip I was going to share with you guys at this point, the one which I moved up and dwelled the Tirpitz, was always support your team. Sometimes you just have to help your teammates when they are in a slight disadvantage to ensure they don't die, as you will maximize your points for your team as well as let them survive, which will also give you more chance of winning. I'm still firing on the Chapayev, but Gneisenau's accuracy can be pathetic at times, as most German battleships have this accuracy problem. So yeah, 6 shells and bad accuracy, he certainly isn't the best in such a long range situation. So I fire on the Chapayev again. The shells hit. I get, I think, 1 overpan, which doesn't deal too much damage, slightly disappointing, and the Mahan appears. I request the Mahan to be targeted because I don't want to get torped, since we are already down on points. It's really hard to win if I die. So much as in the tips I told you to switch to HE when shooting destroyers instead of shooting AP, in this case I did not switch because one, there wasn't much time, and 2, I was originally planning on shooting the Chapayev. I crack precise aim and I shoot at the Mahan, and even though they are just overpans, I kill the Mahan. So guys, those are the tips and tricks and the battle example for how to play a battleship better. If you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like and consider subscribing, as you won't want to miss any of my future videos. If you want me to do any more tips and tricks videos on anything or play any battleship, please leave a comment down in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to follow my socials, my Discord and my Facebook, which are linked in the video description. I'm HL, and I'll see you guys next time.